Okay, well, hello everybody and welcome to Authors in Lockdown. And today we have one of my favourite authors sitting with us in lockdown, and it's author Helen Dennis. Let's have a round of applause.
Hey.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello everybody. Thank you for having me.
Helen is the author of the really exciting, one of my favourite Secret Breaker series, and then The River of Ink. So welcome Helen, thank you to our Author in Lockdown. You are locked down with Dan and I for the next 20 or so minutes, so we're going to lather you with questions. So just to start off then, yes. Let's just start off with the big question. Can we talk a bit about Secret Breakers, which I think is an actual wonderful series. Tell us about how it started and your inspiration to get it all going.
Oh, brilliant. Okie dokie then. Well, I've actually got some props even, look. I've got something to share. Yay, look at that then. I was prepared, look.
Oh, fantastic.
But Secret Breakers is about a massive secret, and it's contained in this box. So I will show you what is inside this box. And I read about this thing, and it was an artifact discovered over 100 years ago.
Wow.
I shall take it out and reveal it for you.
Ooh,
it's all wrapped up in gold. Look at this.
Nice.
Are you intrigued? Do you want to
Very.
know the secret? Yeah, good.
It's coming out.
Here we are then. This is the Thevoynich Manuscript. It's actually a copy of it. The real Thevoynich Manuscript is kept at Yale University. And this is apparently the most mysterious uncracked code in the world. And I can even show you some of the weird and wonderful pages. Like, it's really rather beautiful. It's got fantastic paintings in it and rather odd writing. And this book is, as you can see, quite long, about 240 pages. And as I said, discovered over 100 years ago. And lots of code crackers have had a go at deciphering this code. And apparently they failed. And I read about this about sort of 15 years ago. And I thought, oh, I love the idea of a book that's never been read, and what sort of secrets is it containing? And I thought, oh, I think I might invent a group of people who are going to try and break the code of this book. So I merged this idea with the idea of Bletchley Park coding school that was used in the Second World War. And I imagine that a group of descendants of code crackers from Bletchley had been secretly recruited, so young people, and they were secretly recruited to go and live at Bletchley and try and work out what this book says. And of course, they had loads of adventures on the way. They get to, travel the globe, cracking all sorts of uncracked codes along the way. And I used lots of uncracked codes from history and had great fun with incorporating those into the story, even though I am not naturally a good code cracker at all, but I'm just really nosy and I wanted to know what it says, and I think I've worked it out. So
it's really exciting. I mean, that first novel that starts you off, because it's so interesting that it is actually connected to a true
absolutely book, that's the whole joy for me, was that it was real code. And so I really like the idea of readers going away. There are 6 books in the series, look, all 6 of them. And I like the idea of them going away and being able to look up the codes themselves and thinking, oh, maybe she's right about what it means, or maybe she isn't. Maybe I've, got a better idea themselves. So I really enjoyed incorporating, or even stealing from history, these other uncracked codes. It's great fun, and they're, a really good thing, I think, for people of all ages to investigate.
Absolutely. Go on, Jeanette.
Go, Dan.
Well, I was just thinking that must have involved some pretty heavy research.
Yes, it did. I mean, I do love the research part of it. And in fact, probably, maybe unusually for a fiction writer, I don't know, I probably read more non-fiction than I do fiction, at least sort of, 51%. I do like reading about all sorts of unusual topics. So for me, the research was really good fun. But of course, because these codes are uncracked, there was all sorts of wild and wonderful theories out there. So it was hard for me to kind of, try and find out what I could incorporate. But equally, because there were so many wild and wonderful theories out there, I was able to kind of, you know, be creative. So that it was a kind of like double pleasure, really. Yeah, it was the research was great fun. I got to go to lots of interesting.
Did you go to Bletchley Park and to Yale? Did you go to both?
Yes, I did. Well, I went to Yale. Interestingly, I went to Yale before I got the idea. Secret Break. So I have seen the library where the book is, which is incredible. It's at the most. I mean, you know, your libraries are lovely in Windsor and Maidenhead. They're beautiful, but the Yale Thevoynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library is incredible. So I've seen the outside of it. I haven't seen the manuscript because you have to go in and you know, book an appointment. But every page is available on their online system, so you can look at it. And I did go to Bletchley, and I still go back to Bletchley, and you know, I'm still quite involved with them now because they were so helpful with the research. So it's been great. Yeah, definitely.
That's lovely.
So children that are really into those mystery, fast-paced novels, that the Secret Breakers really is for them, I think, don't you? I do know that, you know, you wanting to find out what the next code is that you're cracking and thinking yourself, you know, how I'm going to crack this code. So
I hope so, and I think
great with that.
Yes, and I think it's, you know, part of the fun of the series is that, you know, there are notebook pages inside the book, so the kids can, or any reader can follow through with the codes and, you know, sort of solve the puzzles alongside the readers. So hopefully they feel really part of the adventure. That was my aim anyway. And the, you know, the wonderful editor I work with, that was what we were trying to put together. Yeah.
And that's interesting, actually, that you said that, because I know we'll go on to talk about River of Ink, your next series, but your inspiration is always from something real. And that's great for maybe children watching this that maybe can't get into fiction, because there's a hell of a lot of interesting non-fiction stuff out there to read as well, isn't it? That might inspire, you know. Absolutely. I mean,
I love reading fantasy stuff, but I think it's because I'm so nosy. I'm so inspired by real places and real people. And writing these sort of books has really, you know, developed that. And I'm amazed at, you know, all the hidden symbols and signs and codes that are just, you know, sort of interspersed around our world that we might not notice. So it's kind of developed that love. You know, I certainly haven't got to the stage where I think, oh, you know, enough now. You know, even more intrigued than I was.
And I think it works the other way around, because I know Dan and I always have a chat about this, because I always say I don't like history, but I read books like you've read, and then I do, and then I'm interested in that book, and I want to look at Bletchley Park. So fiction can make you also interested in non-fiction, can't it? You can do the other way around.
Absolutely.
Sparks curiosity.
Yes. And I definitely would say, you know, I mean, I haven't even got GCSE or GCE or O-level history, not because I failed, because I didn't take it. I took some of the ologies, sociology and psychology and all that sort of stuff. So I wasn't sort of naturally drawn to studying that. So I was working from a basis of knowing absolutely nothing. But I think, you know, sometimes we can get a bit scared and think, well, we don't know much about that era, or we don't, you know, don't know who the king was then or what was going on. And I just think that not being too scared about it, and just, you know, getting to know as much as you can about that era, it can be really good fun. Yes, definitely.
I think that's really interesting what you're saying about how objects can spark that curiosity. That's I mean, it's a great writing exercise, isn't it? Actually, if you want to do some creative writing, picking an object. And quite often what you were saying about how things are digitized as well in libraries. You can go on these websites, Natural History Museum, wherever.
Absolutely.
You have a whole wealth of things that you can, like super interesting things that you can look at, and perhaps they'll spark some curiosity in you as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good way of, you know, obviously it's wonderful to get out and see the real world, but as we are in this sort of time of lockdown, or even if, you know, you're at home and, you know, you haven't got the resources to get you halfway across the world, like you said, if, you know, we can literally go to Yale University, look at their online books, and that's just such a privilege, and you know, really inspiring. And like you say, museums, sometimes their artifacts are up there. Brilliant way to discover things, you know, from the comfort of your own home.
Absolutely.
So your stories, I think, because of your amazing research and interest in the world around you, are always really exciting. So you've got that, but you've got some really strong character kids in there, really good characters. Where does all that come from? The other reason is you've got some great characters in it too. So
Oh, thank you. That's really nice. Yes, because however exciting a sort of story premise is, unless you've got good characters to carry it along. So I was very inspired because I was a teacher before I sort of took off into this world of writing. Or I should say I was always writing, but before I made writing my full-time career. And so I was very inspired by the students I taught. Probably the best example is the fact that one of my favourite characters in Secret Breakers is the boy called Hunter Jenkins. And that is just an incredible name. Well, I stole his whole name, not just bits of it, the whole name is the child I taught, who is no longer a child, who's, probably in his 30s now. And he was wonderful. And I just said to him as soon as I first taught him, that name's amazing. You should be a spy or an action hero. And so I made him a code cracker. And interestingly, he had a best friend at school called Charlie, who used to seriously ride into school on a unicycle. And Charlie was amazing, and Hunter had this brilliant name, and Hunter was amazing too. But I just thought, I could kind of take some of Charlie's characteristics and Hunter's brilliant name and some of his characteristics and merge them together. And because I was writing just for fun, and I didn't think it would ever be published, I did that. And then when they, said they're going to publish it, I was a bit like, oh, hold on. I better check with Hunter. He's okay with that. And he was fine. He was fine. So that's good to.
So that's a hot.
But I'm very inspired
from Helen Dennis. Steal people, steal names.
Absolutely. And it's really good, to sort of. I did read, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't think of which author it was who said this, but someone talked about authors being a bit like an orange press, and you kind of take lots of oranges. So you might take someone's name, someone's characteristics, someone's quirk, someone's backstory, and you kind of put them all together and make the ultimate character. And that's a good way of, really making good characters who can carry your story, a little bit of lots of people you meet. So it's another good excuse to be nosy, people.
What tips, Helen, would you give kids who perhaps wanted to start writing a book?
Yes.
What sort of things would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
Well, definitely go with the whole nosiness thing. So it's a really good idea to have a notebook with you at all times, and just jot down little snatches of conversation you hear and unusual things you see. So that's quite a good tip. But my sort of overriding two main tips are to read as much as possible, and discover what you like and the stories you really enjoy. And it's totally okay, in my opinion, to sort of take a book you've really enjoyed and have a go at writing your own scene for it in a way that's similar to the author, or finishing off an adventure, because that's how you're going to learn how to do it better. And you'll also learn whether you like writing in that way. And then the sort of tip that goes along with that is don't throw anything away. I've got very organized files on my computer. They're organized now, all labeled, rejected idea number 73. But sometimes you might go back to that. So it's a good idea not to, get rid of anything, because we can all have moments when we think, oh, this idea is rubbish, but don't throw it away, because you never know when you might be able to use elements of it again. So take a notebook, read lots, and
I think sometimes you become frustrated. It's interesting what you said about using that idea like drawing. I know we had Ian Brown from Horrible Histories on, didn't we? He was saying copy, first of all, copy this drawing. You're saying
absolutely
in the story and finish it in your own way. That's a great thing, isn't it?
And it is, and I think from a teaching point of view, try and get your head around this. When I was teaching football, I know, don't laugh too much, but when I was teaching football lessons at school, I would get someone who was very good at football to demonstrate what I wanted the children to do, and then I would ask the children to copy that, and if someone didn't do that, I'd say to them, what are you doing? So it's how we learn, by copying and having a go and thinking, oh right, I see what they've done there. And so I think it's a really good skill. Obviously, completely stealing someone's whole book and all the characters and the whole adventure would not be good, but it's certainly how you learn to become a writer yourself. So definitely.
And you
go on, Jeff.
Well, I was just saying, I'm eager to know. You mentioned there about your other tip was to read as much as possible. So I
Yes.
do know you do read children's books as well. So what have you read recently, or have you just got some ones that always stick in your mind that you love? Is there any other tips? Because of course it's summer reading challenge, it's 6 books, so it's always good to get tips on not necessarily new stuff, but stuff that might be on your bookshelves.
Right. Okay. Well, yes, it's silly stories, isn't it? Fun stories. So, I mean, one of the funniest stories I've ever read, and I reread this over and over again, and it makes me laugh out loud, but it's got a really good, thoughtful core, is The Unluckiest Boy in the World. It's by Andrew Norris. It's been out for a while now, but his stories are so laugh out loud funny. So I definitely would recommend that. And I've just bought Orphans of the Tide. I'm reading that at the moment. I'm enjoying that. Not so funny at the minute, but it might turn, turn funny. And The Wild Way Home, I've just finished that. That's Waterstone's Book of the Month at the moment. So I always try and read the Waterstone's Book of the Month. I loved Rumble Star by Abby Elphinstone. That was great and imaginative. That would really take you to other worlds if you're wanting to escape this summer. So that would be a really good recommend, I think, and that's got lots of funny things in it. So yes, I definitely try and keep up with what's coming out at the time. Definitely.
Absolutely. And I do think that the more you read as well, I think, like you say, if you do want to write, it's a really good tip. Your brain just grows bigger and bigger and bigger.
Absolutely. And you can see then, what you like about how a story is plotted and developed, and particular characters. And it just, it's all part of taking the whole idea of writing seriously. So definitely, yeah.
I think one of the things that we've definitely been missing since lockdown started is bringing schools into the library and hosting author events, because we absolutely love some of the questions that children ask, because sometimes they're so incredibly out there. What's the best or funniest question you've ever been asked by a child?
Good question.
Well, that's a great question. I have been asked some really funny ones. I was once asked what football team I supported, and I've spoken to lots of other authors, and they say they get asked that a lot. So obviously I clearly don't look like I've ever taught football. I think the funniest thing was when I was at a school and they were year 9, so they're all very serious. And I was talking about secret breakers, and I said, someone put his hand up and said, how long did it take you to write? And I said, well, the whole series, 6 books, well, to be honest, about 10 years. And he literally just blurted out, how long? and I was kind of really like, oh, I was trying really hard with it. I didn't just bash it off. But I think the incredulation in his voice, how long, was probably the best question. 10 years was the answer. And I worked hard on it every day.
Perseverance. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really miss those types of questions.
I know, it's so sweet. But I'm always asked as well, have I met J.K. Rowling? Have I met Anthony Horowitz? And I can say yes to Anthony Horowitz now, but no,
Oh,
so that's good.
How old are you and how much do you earn? Those two.
Oh yes, that's a good one. Yes, exactly. Oh dear.
So a bit of where time's ticking on, and we haven't spoken about River of Ink, which is obviously your other. Absolutely love it, because your inspiration for your stories is always so interesting. So please tell us about it.
Yes, well, River of Ink. There's 4 in this series. I'll show you them. They've got lovely, stunning, very bright colours. So this was also inspired by real life. And I heard a story back in 2005 about someone who was found in Essex wandering around the seafront. And he had no memory of who he was. But he was dressed very smartly in a dinner suit, and it looked like he'd maybe been in the sea. And I loved the idea of, him not knowing who he was and how they would make sense of his story. And they actually made sense of his story by taking him away to hospital and asking him to write down what he could remember. And in fact, what he did was he drew a picture of a piano. And for those of you out there a little bit older than junior school students might remember the story, you could certainly look it up. If you Google Piano Man, you'll either get a song or you'll get reference to this story. So this guy who remembered nothing but drew a piano. And once people had worked out, he maybe is a pianist, then they were able to track down his family. So I wanted to take the idea of someone who couldn't remember who they were, something rather strange obviously had happened to them, and they made sense of who they were by drawing. And so my character appears out of the River Thames, and instead of drawing a piano, he draws a rather weird symbol. And so his story connects to another real story, which involves alchemists and the quest for everlasting life way back in 1920 in Paris. So I literally stole from real life again and put together this story, trying to make sense of this boy's identity and how he connects to the quest for everlasting life and this really weird symbol that he's drawn. Mix them all up together.
Wow.
in one story.
Amazing. I think we have some fantastic books for anybody taking part in the summer reading challenge. Helen's books are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Fast paced, page turners, just riveting.
Thanks.
And again, the characters in that River of Ink as well, that main character, you know, they're in the relationship, you know, when he goes to live with the family, it just really makes you want to research into, you know, the real life person and you know, your story as well. So they are real page turners, really, really good.
Oh, thank you. And interestingly, readers often, you know, when I say the character who becomes very important to the plot, a real character from 1920s Paris, is real, and people are like, seriously, you know, yes. So I'm not that good at making things up, people. I just, you know, like
it's all out there.
Obviously I just steal from everything, don't I?
So what's next? Once they've trawled their way through Secret Breakers and River, what's on the cards?
Well, they'll have to be quite patient because I'm in the process of writing at the moment, and I've kind of you know, got a bit of a dilemma really at the moment. I've tried to write something that is a sort of like purely historical, so instead of just stealing from history, I've gone back in time a little bit. So I've written something that is set in Victorian times. I think it's really intriguing and interesting, so I'm waiting to see if anything happens with that. And I'm also just playing around with loads and loads of different ideas at the moment, and trying to find something that will sort of sustain me for a long time, because as pointed out, as Secret Breakers took 10 years, I tend to kind of find something that I can do lots of research, as Dan was saying, lots of research and really commit to and build a big world around it. And so it needs to be an idea that's going to keep me interested for a few years. So at the moment, I'm sort of exploring lots of possibilities, which is really exciting and really terrifying, because it's really hard. It's a bit like choosing a book from the library. You're like, is this the one that's going to be my, you know, really favourite book, and I'm going to be talking about for ages, or is this one not going to work? And you don't know, do you, until you dive in. So I'm at that rather weird stage.
Oh, best of luck.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I need it.
I've just had the nod from Zoom saying we've only got 2 minutes. So to finish with, really, a couple of quirky questions. So Dan and I were talking, and we were saying, you know, some of us have had our heads down, been reading like mad in lockdown. Some of us can't concentrate. What's it been like for an author in lockdown with writing? Because you've got all this lovely time.
Absolutely.
Isn't
it weird? And no, the answer is no, Jeanette. No, I haven't done lots at all. Certainly initially, like everyone, I'm sure, I found it sort of, you know, so mind-blowing and scary and unusual that I found it very hard to concentrate. And what I did find myself doing was rereading lots of stuff. So I found that instead of trying new fiction, because it was a bit like, I'm not sure I can cope with anything else new, I spent a long time rereading my favourite books, and that was a really lovely time. I felt that was very good. I did find it very hard to concentrate on new ideas. I was exploring the idea of writing a sort of dystopian story before lockdown, and now what I'd invented doesn't seem as kind of weird as the world we're now living in, so I probably won't carry on with that idea. So it was a really strange time. I'm getting back into my rhythm now, but I think it was very strange, wasn't it, for such a long time, that it was hard to be creative.
Definitely, really good. Well, Helen, we're really pleased you have been creative, and I know more will come from you. So check out, we've got all your books through the libraries. We've got loads of sets of Secret Breakers and River of Ink. So for your summer reading challenge, they're perfect choices, aren't they? So do make sure you can go and order them on the Select and Collect and get them from Main Library, and hopefully going forward from other locations as well. And thank you, Helen, very much.
Not at all. Thank you for having me, and best wishes to everybody there. But thank you. Keep reading, everyone, and thank you very much.